What's going on, people? Hope you guys are doing well. It's been a little while. It's been about a week or so, maybe a little longer. It's been a heat wave here in the UK. Now, I know I'm brown, but I couldn't deal with it. Too much heat, can't deal with it. But now we got a little rain, a little breeze. So guess what? It's your boy, brasstax, baby. You already know, and if you don't, then you should. I know there's 60% of you people who don't know. 60% of you people watch but don't subscribe. So please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And for the people that have subscribed, make sure you go to the notification icon and click the bell button to always. That way you get all of my content. YouTube is broken on this aspect. So if you don't click the bell, you're not going to get notified on your reviews and my new content as they drop. A lot of people hit me up saying, "Where you been?" I told them I've already been here. But anyway, it is what it is. If you guys want to support the channel, I've got a PayPal me and a Patreon. I'm going to be updating Patreon soon with some exclusive stuff. So if you want to support the channel, that's the way to go. I appreciate it. Now, soon I've got a top 10 of best looking 4K Blu-rays out this year so far. So that's going to be next. That should be a good one. But for right now, as we're not really having a lot of 4K Blu-rays getting released, I figured the best thing to do is review some of these digitals. And here we are with the Die Hard collection. God damn. Now, just so you know, my favorite Die Hard movies in order are the first Die Hard, second would be Die Hard with a Vengeance, third would be Die Hard 2, Die Harder, fourth would be Live Free and Die Hard, which is Die Hard 4, and the fifth one by default is A Good Day to Die Hard, which is absolute garbage. Bars. The first Die Hard is just awesome. I mean, what is there to say? Everyone wanted to be Hans Gruber. And let me tell you something about Hans Gruber. Hans Gruber is my favorite villain of all time. Yes, more so than the Joker in The Dark Knight. He is the guy. This brilliant, handsome bastard turned up in the Nakatomi building and caused havoc in the most sophisticated way. Brilliant movie from start to finish. I like Hans Gruber so much that I modeled myself after him in my relationships. When my girl pisses me off and I tell her I'ma count to 3 whilst reaching for the fly swatter, she knows shit's about to get real. I ain't gonna lie to you. Die Hard 2 always felt like it was missing something to me. I don't know whether it was the fact that I thought the villain, however cool the villain was, he just wasn't Hans, and I felt the pacing of the movie was a little off. The pacing of Die Hard 1 was perfect, but this one, I don't know, I didn't like it as much as the first. It was still pretty good, enjoyable, but just not as much. Now, I loved Die Hard with a Vengeance, and it's probably because they brought the original director back. The director from the first movie came back in the third movie, and it was great because they took everything that made the first movie great and flipped it. So now he's got the whole of New York City as the playground, and you got Simon Gruber, who I liked. There's a lot of his character that I liked, but I didn't feel he was as ruthless. There are, although it's my second favorite Die Hard movie, there are some things in there which I didn't like when they're robbing the bank and he's tranquilizing these guards. He should have just shot them in the head. That's what Hans Gruber would have done. And you already knew the bomb in the school was fake because he had already said it was fake earlier on in the movie. Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson, just a great team. I mean, even the beginning when he's walking through Harlem, oh shit. I remember seeing that thinking, he's dead. Yeah, my only problem was with Simon. I think they could have gone the other way to made him more darker, but maybe that's too predictable. Another thing that bothers me about this movie is not actually the movie itself, but back in the day, movies that were released in the UK from the US tended to get slightly censored, right, just to make the PG-13 or the 15 rating, which is your R rating over there in the US. And there are a couple of scenes, because I have got the American versions as well, but there are a couple of scenes which bothered me because I know what happens. The scene where Bruce Willis is in the lift and he's shooting up those guards, it's been panned and scanned, so it's somewhat censored. And when he's beating up what's his name? You know, Simon Gruber's henchman, the main guy with the chains, that's cut a little bit also. And that bothered me because I would like to think that they would have sorted that out now, but just a couple of little cuts from the US release. But it's not a game changer. It's not drastically cut, but you do realize it's there. Especially after watching the American version, which I did years ago. What can you do? Live Free or Die Hard, aka Die Hard 4.0. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed this movie also. I had a good time with it. I remember when it came out, I think it was like a 12 rating. and I was really concerned, but I watched it and I had a good time. I think Justin Long and Bruce Willis work really, really well together. I think it makes a lot of sense. The chemistry is really good, and Justin Long's good at playing that kind of scared kind of guy. Timothy Olyphant, I'm a big fan of from Justified. I think that's a really great TV show, but I really didn't like him as a villain in this. I thought he was just outmatched and outclassed by John McClane, which is strange to me. I just didn't think he was a potent villain. He's like a villain of the week type. Nothing special, not the big bad that you get at the end of the season, but just filler. And Maggie Q, goddamn, looking A1 in this. Maggie Q is sexy, she's tasty, and she's dangerous. That's my kind of girl right there. Great action set pieces, and a decent story. Here's my problem. You could have labeled this movie anything else like Fire Sale, and it would have been a great movie. It just didn't feel like a Die Hard movie to me. As a matter of fact, I don't think this movie was ever supposed to be a Die Hard movie, but they just switched it over to that. And it is a great movie. I did have a good time, but it doesn't feel like a Die Hard movie. A good day to die hard. They should have called this a good day to not watch this bullshit. That's what they should have called it. This movie is trash. I'm not even going to talk about it that much. All I'm going to say is, if you watch Die Hard 4, if you got Die Hard 4 on Blu-ray, listen to the audio commentary. There's a part in that where Bruce Willis says that the initial script for a Die Hard 4 was for him to go to Russia to meet up with his son, and he trashed it. This was what Die Hard 5 was. So you know Die Hard 5 was just a money move for him, because this movie is absolute garbage. Not even garbage, but garbage, right? The only reason I picked this up because it was like $2.99 on iTunes. Okay, and I'm a completionist. I had the previous four, I thought, alright, fine. But they need to make another Die Hard to redeem this shit right here. Absolute trash. Now, if some of you like it, more power to you. But I hate it with a vengeance. So people, you've heard my thoughts on the movies themselves. Now let me tell you about the 4K digital transfers. Okay, firstly, all 5 movies don't come with an Atmos track, so you're getting the 5.1. All 5 are 4K with HDR, no Dolby Vision. So here we go, Die Hard 1, the first Die Hard, the best Die Hard, looks fantastic. It looks great, it looks just as good as the 4K Blu-ray minus the audio. Now I've done a review on the 4K Blu-ray, which I'm going to link up here in the corner, so if you want to go have a look at that, you're more than welcome. But just to reiterate, great looking, a lot more cleaner image than it's ever looked before, great detail on close-ups, there's still grain there, but it's a lot more refined on the 4K. And there's a great layer of depth, especially in indoor scenes, which is most of the movie. I noticed a lot of crush on the 1080p Blu-ray. And you know, a lot of this movie takes place in corridors, in the elevator, in ventilator shafts. So black levels are important. And with the 4K, it brings out some of the highlights that you're just not going to see on a 1080p disc. There's a lot more detail to be had here, and it's the best way to watch the movie. 4K is the best way to watch Die Hard. It's the best it's ever looked. The explosions, the gunfire, things pop with the added HDR on this. And overall, a great looking upgrade in physical or digital. Die Hard 2 is also a great upgrade compared to the 1080p. I always felt that the Blu-ray disc looked a little bit oversaturated in parts, and what the HDR does here, it just balances everything out and gives it a more realistic look. Okay, there was grain in the 1080p, but it's a lot cleaner here, and it's not intrusive at all. It looks pretty clean to me, and I'm looking at this on a 75-inch, goddamn. Even the opening scene where John McClane is getting a ticket in the snow, just so refined and just so much detail there, just even on the car, on the indoor scenes where, you know, the villain is butt naked doing his martial arts moves for God knows what reason. I mean, there's a lot of things I do naked, guess what? Martial arts isn't one of them. The lighting looks great. Even in the airport where you've got the sea of humanity, bunch of people losing their minds when they find out what's going on in the airport. It's just very clear, very detailed. I felt like it was a little fuzzy on the 1080p. Looks so much better here. The shots of the plane up in the air whilst the sunset is hitting it. The HDR is doing its thing. It's a very noticeable upgrade overall. Detail, depth, resolution, even the colors have more of a pop to them while still preserving natural skin tones. Black levels are also great. The first shootout McClane has with the guy in baggage claim, it's a very dark area, but with the HDR implementation here, you're making a lot more out in the shadows, which you're just not going to see on a 1080p. This is clearly a big step up and is absolutely worth a pickup. Die Hard with a Vengeance is another good upgrade, another noticeable upgrade from the 1080p. I love the colors in this. It's more saturated, it's more potent, there's more pop to it than anything you'll see on the 1080p version. You get a few more wrinkles in Bruce Willis, I ain't gonna lie to you. When he's in Harlem with that sign, you know the sign. It's amazing how much more depth it has. You notice a lot more things in the foreground. You know, when the guys are talking to each other before they see him with the sign, you see so much more of them. It's just a lot more detailed overall, especially in long distance shots as well. HDR is fantastic, especially in the film's climax with the chopper. God damn, the explosions can almost be blinding at times. And because most of this film is taking place on New York City, you know, the traffic, the cars, everything has a nice, vibrant look in it. Even the reflections of the sun hitting the cars as McClane and Zeus are driving through the traffic, ready to get to the next bomb, is just really, really good here. It's nice and fairly clean looking. There is a tiny bit of grain, I think, a tiny bit, but nothing overpowering at all. Overall, it's a very pleasing upgrade. And black levels are fairly good also, especially in the subway scenes. Like I said, once again, you're seeing more detail here. It's clearly an upgrade, people, and another one worth picking up. Die Hard 4.0, aka Live Free or Die Hard. Firstly, I should say there's two versions of this movie. You've got the normal theatrical version and you've got the extended edition also. The grain is slightly more refined than the 1080p. It's definitely there. You're definitely going to notice it, especially in some of the darker scenes. But overall, it's a better grain implementation. This whole movie has a slightly darker vibe to it than the 1080p. I think they brought the brightness down so they can build the highlights up. It is obviously a much sharper, much more crispier image, and a more detailed image than anything you're going to see on the 1080p. And you're going to see some of the colors pop a lot more, even little things like, you know, Bruce Willis's, John McClane's daughter, her jean jacket. You're seeing more textures on the jackets, on the clothing, on the cars, even on the grass. You're just not seeing that on the 1080p, but it is a darker movie. This movie is clearly going to test the black levels, especially in the first half of the movie where John McClane is going over to save, what's his name? You know, the kid. So that area, that apartment, the alleyway is a very dark experience. And I may have experienced some black crush, but for the most part, blacks are pretty dark and inky throughout. And when the movie transitions to the third act, when he's being chased by the F-15, god damn, when he's in the truck, you got all these explosions happening, blindingly bright in cases. The HDR really does pop. I mean, it's a darker movie, but a much more vibrant movie than the 1080p. Another very obvious upgrade over the regular Blu-ray. And can we just give a round of applause for Maggie Q? Because I said she looks stunning. She looks stunning in 1080p. She looks stunning in 720p. Guess what? She looks absolutely A1 in 4K, because it brings out textures more. And us 4K enthusiasts love textures in this bitch. A good day to Die Hard, or should I say the shit Die Hard movie. Once again, a movie that has the theatrical version and the extended version. Now, listen, you can't polish a turd, okay? You can have a super duper extended version and it's not gonna make this movie any better. But unfortunately, it's the best looking 4K upgrade out of the whole series, okay? God damn, this looks phenomenal. Full screen to boot. A very clean image, colors pop, razor sharp. I mean razor sharp. You're noticing all the details on Bruce Willis. All the details, you're looking older now, it's obvious. Great three-dimensional depth, the movie's color palette gets a boost in 4K, looks great. I mean, at the beginning of the movie when he's in Russia, you know, it's got a very cold kind of tone to it, a color tone, but everything still pops in its own way. And as the movie goes on, it becomes more vibrant, especially in the indoor scenes. The explosions, once again, can be blinding. A lot of detail in the action here that you're just not going to see on 1080. Not at all. This is a true 4K experience. I'm not going to say extravaganza because it's not quite there, but it looks great. The only thing I will say about this is the black levels can appear to be slightly inconsistent at times, but for the most part, they get the job done. The way this movie handles light in dark areas, the light meets dark, the HDR is absolutely on point here, and you're noticing a lot more colors that you're not going to see on anything else but 4K. And there we have it, people, my review on the Die Hard collection on 4K digital. They look great. They're absolutely worth a pickup if they're cheap. If you want to wait for the 4K Blu-rays to come out, obviously, because you've got Atmos there. You don't have Atmos on digital, which is a big shame, because if these had Atmos, it would have been a no-brainer. I would have said, pick it up right away. But these movies do look really good, especially the last one. You know, Die Hard 1 looks good. They all look good. They all look really good. The 5.1 track on it is serviceable. You do have decent surround sound, but nothing that's going to blow you away. And until they get released on 4K Blu-ray, these are the best ways to watch these movies. Overall, I think I spent £20 on this collection and I don't regret it. They look great. And there it is, people. Subscribe if you haven't already. It's time for me to go. Next video, we're going to do a top 10 of best 4K Blu-rays so far in 2020. What a crazy year it's been, people. It just keeps getting crazier. This year's a joke. When we get to 2021, we're going to forget 2020 existed, okay? That's how we're going to roll. All right, people. 4K Rockstar. You already know.